Hello, I have some big news to announce to all of my patients, clients, friends, family and all my colleagues, is that as of yesterday, for the first time in 20 years, I am no longer officially a chiropractor. Now I'm smiling about this because it's actually good news for certainly all of my patients. Anyway, and don't worry, I'm still going to be doing everything I was before and more, because I am now freed from the limitations of calling myself a chiropractor. So, why have I decided to voluntarily deregister from the General Chiropractic Council register? Well, it all goes back to why I decided to become a chiropractor in the first place. So, if you want to know why, stick with it because you'll learn a few things. If you're not really bothered, then stop watching now. So, how did it all begin? Well, when I was a kid, I fell off the top of my bunk bed and my parents heard a loud crash because the living room is beneath my bedroom. And I don't remember being in any pain. I remember the event. And my parents, a friend of my father's, was a chiropractor, although we knew him as an osteopath at the time. And then, of course, years later, the General Osteopathic Council came into being, so he couldn't call himself an osteopath, he had to call himself a chiropractor. The reason he called himself an osteopath was because he believed more people had heard of osteopaths and knew more about what they did than chiropractors. So, anyway, I went to see him, and he twittered me around. Didn't really think much of it. He explained to me about the spine and the nervous system, and the effects of the nervous system on generally running the body and health. I thought, okay. And the reason I then went to a chiropractor about 6, 7, 8 years later was because I started getting hay fever. And my parents thinking, well, instead of him now being on lifelong drugs, like my mother for hay fever, why not see if the chiropractor can do anything? Osteopath, as we knew him at the time. Because my mother had found out that when she had chiropractic over the summer months, her hay fever was much better and she needed less medication. So I had a series of adjustments with him and my hay fever was much better, and well, it's remained much better. The healthier my spine, the less I have hay fever. So now I don't get hay fever at all. So then a few years later I was thinking, what do I want to do as a career? And I did not have any noble aspirations or causes whatsoever. All I knew is that my parents had introduced me to the idea that nutrition was important for health. They had enrolled me in a meditation course, so I knew that mental health and the nervous system was again important for health. But all I knew for a job was that I did not want a sitting down job. I didn't want a 9-to-5 job because I just didn't think that was going to be good. I also didn't want an outdoor labouring job where I was outside in the elements all the time. Love being outside in the sunshine doing stuff, but not in the winter. And then I hit upon the idea of, I know, I'll become an osteopath like Vic. That's a standing up job inside. Perfect. That fulfilled all of my job criteria. So I then went to find out how to become an osteopath, and Vic said, I'm a chiropractor, I'm a McTimoney chiropractor. I found out that I couldn't go to the McTimoney Chiropractic College because I had to be a mature student. Then I found out about the Anglo-European College of Chiropractic, and so I enrolled, got in, and then I saw the syllabus and I was like, how am I going to cope with this? It's like a medical degree, looking at the list of things you have to do, the neurology, the general diagnosis, the neuroanatomy, the physiology, the neurophysiology. It was just like, what have I done? But luckily within the first, few weeks, I realised how much I enjoyed everything, and I loved the whole course, learned so much. And then by the time I went into my 4th year, I was spending about 2 hours every day in the library reading all of the medical journals, all of the scientific journals, really trying to keep up to date with everything that was happening in the world of health and science. And in those publications I would learn that what we actually were learning right at the forefront of science and medical science was not what was being taught in the medical books, in the textbooks. In fact, the textbooks were at least 20 to 50 years out of date. And I came across a very interesting paper that said that most medicine is at least 20 years behind what we actually know and how we should actually be operating. So I stopped going to lessons and I stopped reading any textbooks because I knew that they were out of date. And I just read the journals, took all my exams, passed them all, no problem. Knew I would because I knew everything that I had to know at the time to pass the exams and jump through the hurdles. Now I went into chiropractic, started learning more about nutrition because I realised that it was important and it goes along really well with chiropractic. And then the General Chiropractic Council was looming, which was not in existence at the time that I came out, but it was going to be a register of chiropractors, and in order to call yourself a chiropractor you had to be on that list, and if you weren't on that list you couldn't call yourself a chiropractor. And the idea was that it's going to help the furthering of the profession, it's going to help protect patients, but we had already seen from how the osteopaths had been involved with the General Osteopathic Council, we had seen what had happened to osteopathy in America when it became into the whole medical system. We also knew what happened to the General Medical Council and how that wasn't really protecting patients, and it was actually limiting doctors in their whole scope of practice on how they could help people. And I was really dubious about a General Chiropractic Council. I really thought this was going to limit our practice. This is not going to help us as a profession, and it's not going to help patients. Those were my thoughts anyway. When I was young, I didn't really have much time to get politically involved in anything. I had opinions, like I have now, but no time to get really involved actively. And then as years went on, I thought, do I really want to register again? Do I really want to register again? And then I had the biggest stress of my chiropractic career, which was I had a falling out with my landlord for the clinic, and we moved the clinic. Now, if the GCC had not existed, I would not have had the biggest stress in my life, because he puts in a complaint. It was all his fault anyway, and the GCC just kicked it out the first hearing they had. But there's about 3 or 4 weeks where there's just all this unknown stress where they couldn't tell us what was going on. My wife was pregnant at the time, she was stressed, she was thinking, how are we going to practice, what are we going to do? And you know, from that period on, I was thinking, the GCC had a different process. There wasn't so much bureaucracy. My wife and my son, because we now know that the stress that the mother goes under when she's pregnant affects the child for life. And so my son wouldn't have had that stress at the very early stage of his life if the GCC hadn't existed. But still, there, I'm still a member. And then there's another big furrow, which is there's a key term called subluxation in chiropractic, and this is the only real reason that makes chiropractic different from osteopathy, is this philosophy of subluxation. And the idea is that if you have a vertebra in your spine that's misaligned or it's not moving properly, it interferes with the proper working of the nervous system and it causes health problems, whether it's aches and pains or whether it's problems internally. But also, internal problems can cause the subluxations to happen as well. And B.J. Palmer, who is the son of the founder of chiropractic, actually said subluxation is not chiropractic. I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Anyway, it's philosophy that makes us distinct. But the GCC seem to be dumbing all that down. The colleges seem to be dumbing all that down. And despite the fact that we know more about the nervous system than we ever did before, we know how important it is. We know that a properly functioning and moving spine is essential for your brain to work properly. And if your brain doesn't work properly, then nothing works properly. But the colleges don't seem to want to be putting any effort into examining this. I don't know what the osteopaths are doing. I don't know what the physiotherapists are doing who manipulate. But sports therapists, they can learn to manipulate as well. So we've got all these different professions that all work on the spine. But it's only really chiropractic that really focuses on the nervous system as the importance of health. But the GCC don't seem to be going down that route. The colleges don't seem to be going down that route. There's one particular branch of chiropractic neurology, and the head chiropractor for that in this country has got to be Darren Barnes-Heath. And if chiropractic is going to remain a separate profession, I think it's got to go down the neurological route. All the colleges have got to bring this on board. They've got to start teaching this at the colleges, not wait till you're out. And So my feelings are that that's where chiropractic's got to go if it's going to remain a distinct, separate profession. If the powers that be decide that that's not the route they're going to go down, then I think in the name of unity and trying to get, spinal manipulation more recognition, you've got to forget chiropractic and osteopathy. You've got to merge everything together as spinal manipulation, and then maybe have separate specialities like chiropractic and neurology within it, because I think it's a waste of time and resources, political power, everything that goes with that, and all the bureaucracy and nonsense that goes with it. So my overall feeling is that chiropractic is not going down the road that it should be doing. It should really merge with osteopathy and other manipulative therapeutics, as it were. And so that's one side. Now, there's the other side of chiropractic, which is the people that think, subluxation is the whole thing about chiropractic, and you've got to get adjusted every week, and it's the most important thing you can do. But we know that malnutrition is actually the biggest problem on the planet today, both in the third world and in the civilized world, because in the civilized world we're getting plenty of calories, but we're still massively malnourished. And that's according to the World Health Organization and the Copenhagen report and loads of other documented evidence. And minds with more knowledge about this than I have, I just look at the science and read it and repeat it. And so this is why I'm getting more and more involved in nutrition. And that's why my patients are benefiting more and more from nutrition. And this is why I'm getting more and more frustrated with a lot of chiropractors who call themselves wellness practitioners who only talk about the spine, which is great. If you're a chiropractic neurologist, brilliant. But yeah, wellness, a lot of people want to talk about wellness, but they're not really, in my opinion, wellness, because they don't talk about nutrition. They talk about it, but they don't really do anything about it. So I've had a lot of mentors over the last few years to help me with all of these sorts of things. And yeah, I was all ready to be re-registered again with the General Chiropractic Council, but a few things happened and I just finally decided, you know what, now's the time to call it quits, stop calling myself a chiropractor and start calling myself something else. And that something else is always the difficult one. Am I a postural specialist, spine? I'm still a spinal specialist, spinal neuro specialist. I'm going to be a clinical nutritionist soon as well, properly. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot more in the clinic to help every cell in your body get better. And I think those are all my notes. Yes, I am going to get back to chiropractic once more. This man here, the founder of chiropractic, D.D. Palmer, he said, I don't believe it beneath my dignity to do anything to relieve human suffering, and that has stayed with me since college. I am not married to the idea of chiropractic being the only form of manipulation. There's many techniques, there's many ways to get the spine working, and it's not just about getting the spine working manually. We've got to get it working from up here down. We've also got to look after the nutrition of the nerves as well to stop problems in the spine from happening. So, there you go. That's it. That's pretty much the reasons. And then in a few years' time, maybe when I've streamlined everything, my kids are older and I don't have to look after them so much, I'm going to have some time to come back in and to do some different things politically to try and get chiropractic where I think it should be going. But probably more than likely I'm going to get more involved in health generally, because spinal manipulation is just one part of keeping people healthy. It's not the whole factor. And that's probably why I'm really leaving chiropractic, because I'm a bit disappointed with the way both arms of chiropractic are going at the moment. They're going in separate directions, and neither of them, I think, are the right way. Okay, bye for now. Be well, live well. My biggest single wish is to help to inspire you to live well for longer in body, mind and spirit.